As the elevator doors slid shut, Marcus felt a rush of excitement and anxiety. He was in the grand lobby of the Crescent Hotel, a place known for its elegance and charm. The marble floors gleamed with a soft light and the air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers. Tonight was special. It was the night he had been waiting for. The elevator hummed softly as it moved upwards. Marcus stood alone, adjusting his tie for what felt like the thousandth time. He was here to meet Emma, the woman who had captured his heart over the last few months. Their connection was intense, unlike anything he had ever felt before. As the elevator dinged softly, he took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. When the doors opened, he stepped out into the hallway, his heart racing. Just a few more moments, he thought. Just a few more steps to the room where they had planned to celebrate their first anniversary. It was a penthouse suite, the kind of place that felt out of reach for someone like him. But that was the magic of love, right? It made anything feel possible. As he walked down the plush carpet, a strange sound caught his attention. It was the unmistakable sound of heels clicking against the floor. He turned to see a group of hotel staff lining up at the end of the hall, smiles plastered on their faces. What was going on? He thought it was unusual for them to stand like that, as if they were waiting for something special. Then he noticed it, the tall, elegant man stepping off the elevator just behind him. This man was dressed in a tailored suit, exuding an air of authority and grace. He walked with a measured stride as if he owned the entire hotel. The staff straightened up, their smiles growing wider as they readied themselves to greet him. Marcus felt a wave of confusion wash over him. This man seemed to carry a presence that drew everyone's attention. It made him feel small, like a pebble by a roaring river. He didn't understand why this stranger commanded such respect and admiration. Was it wealth, power, or something else entirely? As the man approached, the staff began to clap politely. Their faces were bright with joy, and Marcus strained to hear their praises. "Welcome back, mister." Someone called out. Their enthusiasm filled the space, creating an almost electric atmosphere. Marcus stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. He wanted to feel joy for the man who seemed to be a local hero, but all he could feel was a sting of envy. Why was he waiting for a moment with Emma while this man received all the applause? Was he worthwhile in comparison? But just then he saw a familiar face in the crowd, a waiter he recognized, who had served him and Emma on their first date. With a warm smile, the waiter glanced at Marcus and nodded in acknowledgement. It felt like a lifeline thrown into the ocean of disappointment he was drowning in. He took a deep breath and forced himself to step forward. He couldn't miss his moment with Emma now. As he walked past the staff and the petite man, excitement surged through him again. He could finally experience the happiness he sought with her. The penthouse suite door stood majestically before him, and the memory of shared laughter filled his mind. Just yesterday, they discussed their plans for the future, their dreams and hopes entwined like ivy on an old wall. Suddenly, everything felt within reach: love, happiness, a life built together. But then, out of nowhere, his attention snapped back to Mr. Bennett. The man was now surrounded by the hotel staff, beaming as they praised him. They seemed genuinely happy to see him, and happiness radiated off them like sunlight breaking through clouds. Marcus stood just a few feet away, but he felt miles apart, separated by something he couldn't quite grasp. As he watched, he noticed something remarkable. Mr. Bennett took a moment to engage with each staff member, shaking hands, exchanging words. Their eyes sparkled with joy, as if they shared a bond beyond mere employer and employee. How did he manage to create such warmth? What secret did he carry that formed these connections? Marcus's heart ached. Was he capable of that kind of warmth? Was he capable of being that kind of person? Emma deserved someone who lit up the room, someone who shared moments like these with others. Would she really want to spend her life with someone who felt like a shadow in comparison? The elevator doors dinged again, pulling him out of his thoughts. More guests were arriving, and the clapping grew louder. Marcus could feel their energy wash over him, but it felt foreign, as if he had stumbled into a world he didn't belong to. As Mr. Bennett continued to charm the crowd, Marcus found himself falling deeper into his own insecurities. What if Emma discovered another life, one filled with charisma and wealth? What if Mr. Bennett stole her heart right from under him, all because he could command respect with ease? He closed his eyes for a brief moment, trying to block out the mounting anxiety. It was time to focus on what mattered, his love for Emma and the night ahead. Suddenly, he heard laughter from the suite. It was Emma. Her laughter hung in the air like music, sweet and warm. It urged him forward through the emotions tumbling inside him. He opened his eyes, letting the sound guide him. He pushed away the fear and reached for the doorknob, the realization washing over him. All that mattered was this moment, shared between the two of them. With a firm grip, he turned the handle and stepped inside. The suite was dimly lit, candles flickering and filling the space with a soft glow. Emma stood by the table, dressed in a stunning purple dress that hugged her like a second skin. When she turned, her smile lit up the room brighter than any chandelier. She exclaimed, her voice cutting through the night. She rushed over, wrapping her arms around him. The world outside faded away as he sank into her warmth. The tension he'd felt only moments before melted as he held her close. "I thought I'd get lost," he admitted, chuckling nervously. The hotel is a maze and it doesn't matter, she said, pulling back slightly to gaze into his eyes. You're here now. He felt light on his feet, like he could float. Her presence made him forget everything in the hallway, including Mr. Bennet and the bright lights of the hotel. Emma reached up to fix his tie, her fingers brushing against his skin, igniting a familiar spark between them. Happy anniversary, she whispered, her eyes shining with affection. Happy anniversary, he echoed, feeling the weight of the world lift off his shoulders. The evening unfolded beautifully. They shared stories, laughter, and a delicious meal that made Marcus feel like he was in a dream. Emma told him about her day, her excitement bubbling over as she described a project at work, the passion in her voice captivating him completely. For a moment, all of his insecurities faded away. He was simply Marcus, and she was simply Emma, two souls dancing through the night. Hours slipped by as they lost themselves in conversation. It was easy with her, like breathing in a sweet fragrance in spring. As the clock ticked down to midnight, there was a gentle knock on the door. A waiter entered, pushing a cart filled with a beautiful cake. Compliments of Mr. Bennet, he announced warmly as Marcus raised an eyebrow in surprise. Emma giggled. Seems that way, Marcus replied, forcing a smile. After the waiter exited, something shifted in the air. He watched as Emma sliced through the cake, her eyes lighting up at the first bite. But inside his heart, confusion lingered like a shadow. Was this gift meant to cast a light on their anniversary, or a reminder of the man who had captivated everyone's attention? Emma asked, tilting her head with concern. Yeah, I'm fine, he replied too quickly, guilt weighing him down. She pressed gently, her voice full of understanding. He debated sharing his feelings, but hesitated. He wasn't sure how to put it into words, and he didn't want to cast a dark cloud over their special night, but he also understood the importance of honesty. I guess, Emma's expression softened, and he braced for her response, fearing he may have ruined the moment. Instead, she reached across the table, her hand covering his. Marcus, that's just him. I chose you. The sincerity in her words hit him like a tidal wave, washing away the lingering discomfort. I know, he admitted quietly, but the doubt began to fade. It's just, she echoed, shaking her head with a smile. You are more than enough. He chuckled at the memory. Exactly, she nodded. And that's who you are, someone who holds doors open for others. In that moment, the world outside seemed to vanish. The flickering candlelight cast a warm glow that felt like home. He realized then that it didn't matter how much applause someone else received. He had found his own joy in the slightest acts of kindness. With her hand still under his, they shared cake and laughter, brightening the cozy space of the penthouse suite. It was their moment, and no one else mattered. And when they looked into each other's eyes once more, they both understood that love is not about the grandeur that surrounds you, but about the one who stands beside you holding doors open when everything feels overwhelming. As the night wore on, they created their world, filled with laughter, hope, and the kind of connection that felt limitless. And Marcus knew with all his heart that the journey ahead would be filled with beautiful surprises, his own kind of magic. He held the elevator door open, his arm outstretched just long enough for her to slip inside. The soft ding echoed faintly as the doors began to close. The brief moment turned into a heartbeat when he caught her gaze, an invisible current passing between them. It wasn't just a casual exchange. This was a spark, an unspoken connection unfolding right there in the elegant lobby of the Grand Summit Hotel. James had never imagined he'd find himself here, in this lavish hotel with its glistening chandeliers and polished marble floors. He was just a simple man, a hardworking sales representative who had come to attend a conference. He usually blended into the background. But this moment lit a fire within him, making him feel larger than life as he watched her. The elevator doors closed, but opened almost immediately again. He could hear a rhythm in the soft hum of the elevator as it descended. James took a deep breath, his nervousness slowly easing away. He watched as the woman stepped out, her presence still lingering in the air. His heart raced. What was her name? Would he ever see her again? With a half-hearted smile, he stepped into the elevator himself. But he didn't press a button. Instead, he watched the lobby from behind the glass panel. The excitement hummed in his veins. In just moments, he'd have an encounter with a stranger that could spark something incredible. It wasn't long before he noticed a buzz sweeping through the lobby. Staff members were gathering, shifting their attention toward the sleek elevator door. They stood in a neat formation, their faces lit with anticipation. James turned to see who had caught their eye. Just as the elevator doors slid open with a smooth gliding motion, a tall figure emerged. A man dressed impeccably in a tailored suit stepped out, a charismatic aura surrounding him. As he walked forward, the buzz erupted into claps and applause. James stood frozen, a witness to something extraordinary. "Welcome back, mister," a cheerful receptionist called out, her voice brimming with genuine excitement. The staff members lined up looked thrilled. Their smiles were more than just duty. It was as if they were honoring a hero returning from battle, and James felt strangely out of place, like an uninvited guest at a party. Mr. Caldwell turned, his face a portrait of graciousness. He accepted their well wishes like an old friend, shaking hands and exchanging light-hearted banter. There was an ease to him, a connection that drew everyone in. James couldn't help but feel his heart sink in the shadows. He'd never been the type to attract that kind of attention. Could he have been more outgoing, more charming? The questions buzzed in his mind like annoying flies. He wanted to shake them away, to refocus on his own goals and aspirations, yet he found himself intrigued by this man who seemed to have it all. With each passing moment, the atmosphere thickened. Staff members whispered and giggled, their excitement palpable. James couldn't tear himself away from the scene. What did this man have that drew out such admiration? Was it wealth, accomplishments, a magnetic personality that simply pulled people in? But then James remembered, everyone has a story. Maybe this man had overcome struggles just like anyone else. Yet that thought seemed to slip away as the hotel staff continued to adore him. What was he really, just another guest, or was he destined to be more? The moment lingered, frozen in time, until Mr. Caldwell's eyes flicked towards James. In that instant, he felt a jolt of recognition. Did the man see him? Did he feel the electricity too? But Mr. Caldwell's attention quickly turned back to the staff, their laughter resonating in the lobby like music. Driven by curiosity, James edged closer, anticipating a moment where he might catch Mr. Caldwell's eye again. But he was still just a stranger in the crowd. Was it possible to mingle with greatness in the way he wished? An opportunity would arise soon enough. The conference was approaching, bringing people together in the name of business and ambition. As he stood there, he remembered advice he had once heard. Life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Wasn't he always waiting for something to happen, waiting for the right moment to make himself known? Maybe this could be that moment. Defying his doubts, he took a step closer. The air felt electric as James approached, the scene blurring around him. But then, before he could find his words, the elevator chimed softly, and another rush of guests appeared in its doors. More excitement fluttered in the air. The hotel staff straightened, adjusting their posture as Mr. Caldwell focused on the newcomers. "Well, would you look at that? Looks like the entire conference just arrived," James said to himself, a mix of irony and inspiration bubbling up within him. Could this be the night he breaks out of his shell and becomes more than a nameless face in the crowd? With a nod of determination, he surged forward. He called out, approaching the group. He suddenly felt the pressure of the moment, vulnerable yet exhilarated. The excitement in the room shifted slightly, eyes turning toward him. Some looked surprised, others curious. Mr. Caldwell turned slightly, a smile curling his lips as he sized up this newcomer. Mr. Caldwell replied, his voice calm and inviting. James drew a breath, holding onto the thrill he felt. "I'm James. I'm new in the field, so I'll be watching closely to learn from everyone." He couldn't help but smile at the hint of humor that seeped into his words. Laughter rippled through the guests, and the tension that almost choked him began to dissipate. Mr. Caldwell nodded, his expression shifting to respect. "It's great to see someone eager to learn. I remember my early days in this industry, always hungry for knowledge." Suddenly, James felt a spark of belonging. The shadows that had loomed over him just moments ago began to fade. Time slowed as he engaged with those around him, sharing stories, ideas, hopes, and dreams. For the first time, he felt connected. In that flurry of conversation, every chuckle and nod felt like a step toward the man he wished to be, a person whose voice mattered, whose ideas could take flight. He saw Mr. Caldwell in a new light, not just a figure draped in accolades, but someone who had once stood where he stood now, full of ambition and uncertainty. They spent the next few hours tangled in discussions that ranged from industry gossip to personal anecdotes. James found himself laughing and bonding as if they'd known each other for years. Camaraderie grew, warmth spreading through the crowd, with Mr. Caldwell guiding the conversation effortlessly. But just when he thought the night couldn't get better, something profound happened. Amidst the laughter and stories, one of the hotel staff casually walked past, carrying a tray of drinks. It slipped from her fingers, spilling everywhere. Time seemed to freeze. Gasps filled the air as everyone turned toward the commotion. The staff member's face blanched as she quickly dropped to her knees to clean up the mess, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. In that moment, James felt a sudden flood of empathy. He remembered struggling in the early days, feeling small in the face of greater expectations. But then unexpectedly, Mr. Caldwell stepped forward. He bent down next to her, offering encouragement. "Hey, it's okay. Accidents happen to all of us," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "How about we turn this around?" James watched as Mr. Caldwell's presence transformed the uncomfortable situation. The staff member looked up, relief flooding her expression. With a warm smile, Mr. Caldwell helped her to her feet, making her feel valued like an important piece of a bigger puzzle. A ripple of applause began among the staff, the camaraderie reignited. This man who held the elevator door could also hold up others when they stumbled. The image burned into James's mind, an embodiment of leadership radiating warmth. James felt a profound lesson settle in. It wasn't just that Mr. Caldwell commanded respect, he earned it through compassion and kindness. And here was James, learning that even seemingly small acts could create ripples of change. As the night drew closer to close, James caught a moment where Mr. Caldwell met his gaze again. There was an understanding between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the growth taking place. James felt invigorated in ways he hadn't expected. The drive for connection, for reaching beyond himself, surged like a tide. "Can I have a moment of your time, mister?" he asked, his voice steady, heart pounding with meaning. "Of course, James, came the warm reply. They stepped aside from the bustle, and in that private space, James took a breath and let his words flow. Thank you for tonight. I've been feeling lost, uncertain about my path, watching you engage with everyone. Mr. Caldwell nodded thoughtfully, a wise smile on his face. You're already on that journey, my friend. Just being here, ready to engage and offer your voice, shows your potential. Always be genuine. A light flicked on for James. It was more than just about accomplishments or accolades. It was about forging meaningful relationships along the way. In that moment, he realized he had held the door open for change, both for himself and for those around him. As the clock struck midnight, the night became a tapestry woven with smiles, stories, and newfound friendships. James felt a surge of gratitude wash over him like a rejuvenating breeze. Maybe he wasn't just another face in the crowd. Maybe he was the spark ready to brighten his own life, ready to extend that warmth to others. The glow of confidence radiated through him, and in that moment he felt limitless. The bustling energy of the hotel seemed to pulse around him, and as he exchanged goodbyes, he knew he was stepping into a new chapter. Today was no longer just a day at a conference. It was the day he decided to be more, not just to exist in the shadows, but to shine his own light brightly. Because sometimes all it takes is holding open an elevator door or a moment of understanding to change everything. He held the elevator door open, his heart racing as he glanced back to see the last few moments of her hurried stride. In that busy hotel lobby, everything else faded into blurry backgrounds of chatter and footsteps. It was just him and her, locked in a brief but electric moment that felt like a scene from a movie. The air was thick with anticipation, a whispering tension hanging between them. He called out, his voice stronger than he felt. She turned, surprise flickering in her eyes. The elevator doors glided open wider, waiting for her to step inside. Time slowed as she approached, and he marveled at the way her vibrant dress seemed to flow, capturing the light in the lobby like liquid gold. As she stepped inside, the sweet scent of her perfume enveloped him, the freshness mingling with the polished wood of the elevator walls. He pressed the button for the top floor, and as the doors began to close, he felt a surge of triumph. Whatever happened next, he had taken a step into the realm of possibilities. "Thank you," she said, her smile brightening the small space. "I get it," he replied, trying to maintain a casual tone. He introduced himself, his name barely escaping his lips as butterflies danced in his stomach. "Julia," she said, her eyes twinkling. They exchanged glances, a connection flaring like a spark in the dim light of the elevator. But just as he opened his mouth to say something profound, the elevator came to a halt. The door slid open, revealing the bustling top floor, but it wasn't just any ordinary scene. Several hotel staff members lined up outside, their smiles wide and welcoming. James's heart lurched. He was suddenly painfully aware of how out of place he felt. He was just another guest here for a conference, while Julia was greeted like royalty, the staff bowing slightly in respect. One of them exclaimed, stepping forward. James watched in awe as Julia's features lit up, a soft blush creeping across her cheeks. She replied, her voice warm with genuine delight. They clearly knew her, and respect swirled in the air like a fine mist. He had thought this moment was theirs alone. He never expected to find himself standing on the sidelines of her world. As staff members greeted her one by one, James felt the dissonance between them shift. Her laughter rang out, a melody of warmth that filled the corridor. And here he was, the man who had simply held the elevator door open. What was he really doing with his life? Were his simple gestures enough to make an impact? He felt like a ghost watching the living, detached but longing for connection. The more he observed the warmth they showed Julia, the more he questioned his own place in the hotel, in the conference, and in the world. Did he even belong here? But just as he was about to slip away, another staff member turned and caught his eye, a flash of recognition lighting up their face. James. They shouted enthusiastically, pulling him back from the shadows. A ripple of surprise traveled through the group. Julia asked, glancing at James with curiosity. Of course, he was here last year. The staff member confirmed, glancing between them with hopeful intrigue. James felt warmth swell in his chest. It was that kind of recognition that made him feel alive for the first time. He exchanged pleasantries with the staff, and gradually he stepped out from behind the elevator door and into the light. As they all laughed and chatted, James couldn't ignore how Julia's gaze returned to him, a question lingering in her eyes. She asked, tilting her head slightly. "Well," he said, a little shy but feeling emboldened by the easy laughter surrounding them, "I travel here for work." She nodded appreciatively, her interest sparked. "Seems like you have quite a knack for connecting with people," she replied, her tone challenging. James felt a shift in that moment, the air between them filled with curiosity and a touch of nervous energy. What was his secret? He had always thought of himself as the quiet type, observing rather than engaging, but perhaps it was time to embrace the truth. "Honestly, I think it's just about being genuine," he admitted, his words flowing more naturally now. "People appreciate real connections." Julia's expression flickered with understanding, and for a moment the noisy bustle of the hotel faded away. It was just the two of them standing in the glow of an unexpected bond, a connection rooted in honesty. "Maybe we should explore that together," she proposed, her excitement tangible. What do you say we ditch the formalities of the conference for a bit? His heart raced again, but this time for a different reason. Are you sure? She echoed, raising an eyebrow. You're the one who held the door open for me. James felt a surge of confidence course through him. Maybe holding that elevator door had set off a chain reaction he never saw coming, a simple act that could ripple through to something beautiful. All right then, he said, unable to suppress a grin that spread across his face. I hear the rooftop terrace is stunning this time of year. Julia beamed as they navigated down the hallway together. The hotel seemed to glow around them, a vibrancy that made his heart race with possibilities. As they stepped onto the terrace, the night sky opened up like a canvas filled with shimmering stars, the sound of the city humming beneath them. It was breathtaking, like stepping into a beautiful painting. Wow, this is amazing, James breathed, taking in the view of the skyline. Julia replied, taking a seat at one of the tables. As they talked, laughter spilled between them like sweet wine, a mixture of stories, dreams, and thoughts on life. Each word they exchanged felt significant, cutting through the noise of the conference with ease. Julia shared tales of her studies and her passions, revealing layers of herself that felt raw and real. She spoke boldly about her ambitions, determination radiating from her every word. James felt himself leaning in, captivated by her authenticity. This is my favorite part of the conference, Julia admitted, her gaze softening. It's not just about the sessions or the networking. A flicker of courage ignited within James. You know, I've always believed that everyone has a story. She nodded, her dark eyes brightening. Exactly, and it's in sharing those stories that we find common ground. He leaned forward, feeling the gravity of their conversation. It's so easy to feel invisible in this busy world, like a nobody among someone who appears to have it all figured out. Absolutely, Julia replied, a knowing smile curling her lips. Connection comes from vulnerability. The soft glow of the skyline enveloped them like a blanket, and in that moment James felt freer than ever. Here, sharing their thoughts, he was no longer just a face in the crowd. He was a participant in creating something meaningful. As the night unfolded, laughter echoed against the starry sky, wrapping around them like a song. He had held the door open, and now they were both stepping into uncharted territory together. But then, as the hour grew late, reality crept back in. The world beyond the terrace hummed with the noises of the conference. People were still mingling, and the memory of Mr. Caldwell's warm laugh faded into the grip of the night air. I guess we should head back, Julia suggested, glancing at her watch. James felt a pang of disappointment. He wanted to hold onto this moment. Yeah, but I'd love to continue this conversation, she replied, her smile beaming. How about at the cafe on the first floor? Sounds perfect, he said, feeling a rush of anticipation. As they walked back toward the elevator, they fell into an easy rhythm, joking and teasing one another. James felt lighter, buoyed by her energy. With every step, his insecurities faded and a new sense of purpose blossomed. But the moment they stepped back into the elevator, something shifted again. The door closed behind them with a soft click, and the atmosphere changed. The graceful tension of the rooftop vanished, replaced by the reality of expectation and pressure. Suddenly, James remembered how easy it had been to connect up there. Now in the confined space, doubts bubbled up within him. What if the moment fizzled out? What if he never saw her again after breakfast? Julia glanced at him, her expression curious. Yeah, he replied quickly, but the hesitation in his voice betrayed him. Her brow furrowed slightly, and she held his gaze, searching for the truth. Really? Caught off guard, James forced a smile. She echoed, incredulous. You just held the elevator door open for me and had a deep conversation about life. Her words washed over him like a soothing wave. Absolutely, Julia replied, her confidence unwavering. You've already got the secret. As the elevator doors opened once more and the bright lobby greeted them, James felt a surge of clarity. It was time to let go of his self-doubt and embrace his journey. In that moment, he understood that the warmth he felt after holding the door open was true strength. It wasn't just the act itself. It was the understanding that everyone is deserving of connection and everyone has their own story waiting to be shared. He had taken a leap of faith tonight, and it had changed everything. Armed with that knowledge, he turned to Julia one last time before they parted ways. She smiled, a radiant light in the midst of the lobby's busyness. Let's keep this going, okay? Definitely, he replied, feeling a promise ignite between them. As she walked away, he couldn't help but linger, watching her become a part of the vibrant hotel life that buzzed around them. In that moment, James realized he was finally stepping out of the shadows. By holding the elevator door open for one person, he had unlocked a door into a whole new way of living, a life filled with authentic connection and possibility. In a world where it's easy to remain invisible, he had chosen to be seen. And with each moment, he became more than just James, the man who holds the door. He was the man who stepped into his own spotlight, ready to take on whatever came next. He held the elevator door open, a simple act that would change the course of his evening in a way he never anticipated. David had just stepped into the opulent lobby of the Grand Lux Hotel, his suitcase bumping along behind him, an echo of excitement and anxiety swirling in his chest. As the doors began to close, he saw her, a woman hurrying down the corridor, her heels clicking urgently against the marble floor. Expression was a mix of determination and surprise as she noticed the door inching shut. She called out, her hand darting forward. David's heart raced. Something about the urgency in her voice compelled him to extend his arm, holding the door just long enough for her to slip inside. The elevator welcomed her with a gentle chime, the doors closing behind them as if sealing in a moment of fate. "Thank you," she said, catching her breath. "No problem at all," David replied, stealing a glance at her. She wore a striking red dress that clung perfectly to her figure, her hair cascading in waves around her shoulders. She exuded an effortless charm, and for a moment he forgot about the conference that had brought him to this luxurious hotel. As the elevator ascended, there was a lightness in the air, a sense of connection that felt electric. He could feel the awkwardness of small talk bubbling beneath the surface, and yet the thrill of their shared moment hung palpable between them. David asked, feeling a little bolder now. "Penthouse," she replied nonchalantly, her eyes sparkling with mischief. The elevator chimed again as they reached the top, and as he held the door, the reality of the moment sank in. He was standing next to someone who seemed to belong in this realm of luxury, while he was just a regular guy, here for work and feeling completely out of place. But before he could dwell on his insecurities, she stepped out into the hallway, and that's where the scene shifted dramatically. Suddenly, hotel staff members lined up like stars in a galaxy, waiting to greet her. Their faces lit up with genuine joy, smiles stretching across every uniformed face. "Welcome back," Ms. One exclaimed as if she were royalty returning home. David stood there, bewildered. He felt his cheeks warm in embarrassment. This woman who had shared a moment of vulnerability with him in the elevator was greeted like a celebrity. Why had he held the door open? Julia, as he learned her name, replied, her warmth enveloping the group. The camaraderie was electric, the staff's admiration for her palpable. David felt small, hidden behind the lens of their devotion. He shifted uncomfortably, debating whether to leave silently or attempt to mingle. But then he noticed one of the staff members glancing his way, a glimmer of recognition crossing their face. David. Suddenly, all eyes turned toward him, a spotlight he hadn't expected. Julia asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Of course, he came last year," the staff member declared, and for a moment the heat of embarrassment transformed into a flicker of pride. Julia smiled, her attention shifting back to him, warming the air between them again. "It's great," David replied, trying to project confidence. A sense of belonging washed over him. Maybe tonight wouldn't be as lonely as he had thought. Julia prodded, genuinely interested. He took a breath. "I'm still climbing, you know. You'll get there," she said, her sincerity striking him unexpectedly. Her words lit a fire in him, and he began to feel the pressure of the last year lift off his shoulders. Up until that moment, David hadn't realized how much he needed to hear encouragement, especially from someone so elegant and poised. As they spoke, the staff surrounding them commingled, their laughter mingling with the energy of camaraderie. They nudged each other in good spirits, creating a vibrant atmosphere. It was a celebration of community, and David felt himself being drawn in. Julia suggested, her eyes shimmering with enthusiasm. Before he could think twice, he found himself agreeing. As they stepped forward, the staff members waved cheerfully. Thundering applause erupted from the lobby as Julia walked among them, each hand shaking and each smile genuine. Suddenly, David understood. This wasn't just about the glitz and glamour of the hotel, it was about the connections she had built, the warmth she spread effortlessly. Walking through the exquisite hallways towards the rooftop bar, David felt lighter. The tall ceilings and intricate chandeliers mesmerized him, but nothing compared to the light Julia emanated. She guided him with an easy laugh and a graceful confidence that made him feel at ease. She asked, a playful smile creeping across her face. "Absolutely," David replied. The bar was breathtaking. The skyline stretched before them like a living painting, and the soft sounds of music mingled with lively conversation. The atmosphere was electric. They settled into an elegant lounge area where plush sofas beckoned them to unwind. A server approached them with a menu of creative cocktails, and as Julia perused it, David couldn't help but admire the way she carried herself. Everything about her was magnetic. She asked, glancing up with a playful grin. "I usually stick to the classics," he admitted, trying to navigate his nerves. In that moment, he felt vulnerable but also inexplicably drawn to her. Julia tilted her head thoughtfully. She suggested, and her enthusiasm was infectious. "Okay, I'll take a bold choice," David laughed, feeling the intoxicating combination of excitement and nerves swirl within him. With drinks ordered, they began to talk about their lives, their passions, and what drove them. Julia spoke of her recent projects, how she was pushing herself to take risks and share her voice while climbing the corporate ladder. David listened, enraptured by her stories, feeling a newfound energy ignite within. She asked, leaning forward. Caught off guard, he hesitated, but the sincerity in her eyes melted any lingering fears. "I think I want to focus more on making genuine connections," he revealed. "That's the key, find your voice and let it ring out," she encouraged, and there was fire in her spirit that inspired him. Just then the drinks arrived, their vibrant colors glinting under the bar lights. With a conspiratorial glimmer in her eyes, Julia raised her glass. David responded, clinking his glass against hers. As they sipped their cocktails, a wave of laughter washed over them. The night settled into an easy rhythm, fueled by stories and shared dreams. With every passing minute, David began to feel transformed. There was comfort in her laughter, an understanding that seemed to blossom without words. The city below sparkled like 1,000 fires, and in that moment, he recognized something profound. In the rush of life, he could still seize connection, still find joy in unexpected places. Hours melted away like sugar dissolving in tea, and as Julia shared more of her journey, David felt a kinship growing between them. Without the constraints of expectations, he discovered the freedom of authenticity. But then, just as they were laughing over a shared joke, the energy shifted. David's gaze drifted towards the door where staff members had begun to filter in, each one stealing glances at Julia, each one smiling and sharing whispers. It was as if she had a magnetism that drew everyone in. "Look at that," he said, nodding toward the staff members. Julia laughed, but there was a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. She shrugged, but the warmth in her cheeks betrayed her humility. "It's clear you do," David replied, meeting her gaze firmly. Just then a young woman approached their table, her eyes wide with admiration. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I just wanted to say how inspiring it is to see you here, Julia." Julia beamed, visibly touched. "Thank you so much." As more staff members began to join them, David noticed a shift in the night. Conversations turned into mutual appreciation. The room buzzed with energy. They spoke about dreams, aspirations, and the importance of community, much like the discussions he'd had with Julia. In that moment, David truly understood why she was so well regarded. It was clear her impact extended well beyond the hours of work. She lifted others, fanned their dreams, and inspired them to rise. He felt a wave of admiration wash over him. How often do we get to see someone shine, someone who embodies both talent and grace? David realized he wanted to become that kind of person, someone who inspires others. As the last echoes of conversation drifted away, Julia turned her focus back to him. "You know," she said softly, "I've thoroughly enjoyed tonight. Thank you for sharing this time with me." "I feel the same way," he replied, his voice sincere. "But I should ask, what's next? Is there something more?" Julia smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "Let's keep the momentum going. Why don't you join me for breakfast tomorrow?" David's heart leaped at the prospect. Julia said, a smile dancing on her lips. "Let's meet at the cafe in the lobby." As the night wound down, David felt a sense of fulfillment that had eluded him for far too long. It had started with a simple act of holding the door open, but it had evolved into something deeper. In Julia, he found not only a spark of inspiration, but the courage to take bold steps in his own life. As the night ended and they exchanged goodbyes, David could still feel the warmth of their conversation lingering in the air. Tomorrow awaited him, filled with new possibilities and the promise of another chance to connect. In that elegant hotel, he had stepped beyond the ordinary, and as he made his way to his room, the glimmering skyline reflected in his eyes. He couldn't help but think that perhaps, just perhaps, he was on the brink of something remarkable, both in his life and in the friendships blossoming within it. Tomorrow would be a new chapter in a journey he had barely begun to explore. In the world of chance meetings and unexpected moments, he learned that holding open the door could lead to so much more. And with a heart full of hope, David embraced that knowledge, ready to step into the light with newfound confidence. He held the elevator door, barely noticing the chaos buzzing around him. In the lobby of the Astoria Hotel, a hub of energy pulsed through the air, thick with the sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and distant conversations. But all of that faded into a low hum as he focused on the woman rushing toward him, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. She called, her voice urgent yet melodic. Jack's hand shot out, holding the door open just in time. The elevator doors glided shut behind her as she stepped inside, her breath coming in quick bursts. "Thank you so much," she panted, a hint of panic visible in her eyes. "No problem," Jack replied, feeling a flicker of warmth at their shared moment. "Up to the gala, I'm running late," she said, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. In that small space, the world outside faded. He was drawn to her, captivated by the way her energy lit up the room, even in a cramped elevator. As they ascended, he caught sight of her name, Tagel, a name that seemed to fit her perfectly. He dared to ask, hoping to prolong the fleeting tension between them. "Yes, I'm a sponsor," she said, her face brightening at the prospect of conversation. "Just an attendee," Jack said with a chuckle. Elle exclaimed. Her eyes sparkled with conviction, and for a moment Jack felt a kind of warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. They reached the top floor, the elevator doors opening to reveal a spectacular view of the city skyline, lit up against the deepening night. But what truly caught Jack's attention was the line of hotel staff standing just outside the elevator, waiting with eager smiles and applause like a welcoming committee. "Welcome, Ms." one of them called as Elle stepped out, her expression transforming from momentary panic to one of warmth and familiarity. Jack felt the air shift. He was a mere observer, standing in the shadows as a spotlight fell on her. The way the staff greeted her with genuine joy and respect caught him off guard. "Wow, you really know everyone here," he said, feeling slightly out of place. "This hotel feels like home," Elle said, her voice light and inviting. She turned as the staff flocked around her, showering her with greetings and polite inquiries. Jack watched as she engaged with them effortlessly, her charisma radiating into every corner of the lavish corridor. As he stood there, a strange mix of admiration and insecurity washed over him. He could feel the distance between them widening, the enthusiastic greetings feeling like a chasm he wasn't sure how to cross. Here she was, a woman who possessed a magnetic charm, effortlessly catching the attention of everyone around her. Suddenly, a young receptionist turned to Jack, their expression brightening. "Hey, you're back," Jack blinked, taken aback. "Of course. You were here last year for the conference," the receptionist beamed. A flicker of pride ignited within him. "Thanks," he said, feeling bolstered. Perhaps he wasn't so invisible after all. Watching the scene before him, Jack found himself pondering the nature of connection. In a world where people seem to drift in and out of each other's lives like passing ships, he longed for something deeper. He thought about his own existence, the routine of it all. As she was embraced by familiar faces, warmth wrapped around him, reminding him that some moments mattered more than others. The staff continued to celebrate Elle, sharing laughs and story tales that painted a picture of who she was beyond the gala. Jack couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Was he capable of that? Could he create a space wherein others felt joyfully welcomed? Elle's voice pulled him from his thoughts, and he looked up to find her smiling at him, waving him forward. "Come join us." Hesitant, he stepped forward. The welcoming atmosphere pulled him in, and within moments he felt the warmth wash over him. They exchanged small talk as laughter drifted through the air. Jack began to realize that perhaps he could be a part of this moment, not merely a spectator. Elle leaned in closer, her voice low and inviting. "You're a natural at making connections." This moment felt surreal. Encouraged by her kindness, Jack found himself more at ease. "I usually just try to do my best and hope for the best," he admitted. She smiled. As the evening wore on, Jack shared stories of his past, his aspirations, and the things that fueled him. Each word that left his lips felt liberating, like he was shedding layers of self-doubt. He noticed how the staff hung onto every word, as if he were painting a picture worth seeing. Something extraordinary happened. As they continued to talk, Jack began to feel the power of authentic connection. He saw the way Elle engaged with everyone, her natural warmth inviting laughter, encouragement, and excitement. "Jack, you've got something special," one of the staff members chimed in. Overwhelmed, he smiled, realizing they believed in him just as much as he was beginning to believe in himself. In this grand hotel where the glitz and glamour could feel overwhelming, he found a sense of community that made him feel grounded. As the gala began in earnest, the atmosphere shifted. Guests dashed in and out of the ballroom, laughter and excitement swelling with each moment. Jack felt connected to all of it, and as he stood near Elle, he felt a surge of gratitude and appreciation. Perhaps he could allow himself to belong, to let go of his past doubts. Elle asked, gesturing toward the bar. As they made their way through the throng, Jack noticed how people turned to Elle, greeting her with smiling faces and enthusiastic hugs. She was a beacon, drawing people into her orbit effortlessly. He joked, still marveling at her charisma. "Only the ones worth calling friends," she replied, glancing at him with those bright, genuine eyes. They reached the bar, where the bartender immediately recognized her. "What can I get you, miss?" she grinned, and Jack couldn't help but admire her gusto. It was as if she danced through life, unimpeded by anything that could slow her down. Moments later, drinks in hand, they returned to the bustling dance floor. Jack felt exhilarated. For the first time, he could sense the rhythm of life pulsing around him. He was buoyed by the presence of someone who believed in making connections, and it fueled him. In the midst of the crowd, Jack and Elle began to dance, the beat pulsing beneath their feet and spinning them into a world of laughter and joy. She led him in step, her movements effortless and free. As they twirled, Jack felt the pressure of expectations slip away. Here, amidst laughter and the warmth of bodies moving together, he began to see the beauty in human interaction. It was messy, chaotic, and yet profoundly beautiful. Elle exclaimed as they moved through the crowd, lost in the energy of the evening. He laughed, feeling alive. Somewhere in the midst of their dancing, a thought occurred to him. Maybe belonging wasn't a destination, but a journey built through moments like this. Each connection was a stepping stone, a path laid before him, leading towards something brighter. As the night continued, they shared stories that spilled out like spilled ink. Jack shared tales of his childhood, of finding solace in art and music. Elle recounted her adventures, the places she had seen, and the people who shaped her along the way. In moments of vulnerability, they both allowed their walls to come down. The laughter faded, replaced by contemplative glances. It felt as if they had stitched together pieces of their lives, revealing depths of emotion they had both previously shied away from expressing. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just a face in the crowd," Jack admitted, a heaviness creeping into his voice. "I understand," Elle replied, her gaze steady, "but it's in these connections that we truly come to life. Just then, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd, a sudden burst of applause that echoed through the ballroom. Both of them turned in surprise, and Jack glanced around as the hotel's staff began to form a line. It became clear that they were preparing to honor someone. Jack wondered aloud, intrigued. As if manifesting his curiosity, the hotel manager took center stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," they began, voice booming with enthusiasm. Jack felt a rush of anticipation as he glanced at Elle, who stood beside him, confusion dancing in her eyes. In that moment, the manager continued, "We'd like to acknowledge an exceptional member of our team, someone who brings warmth to every interaction and embodies the spirit of our hotel miss." The applause erupted, and all eyes turned to Elle. Jack could see her surprise, her cheeks flushing as she laughed in disbelief. She mouthed, eyes wide. Before she could respond, the staff surged forward, delivering her an award, a beautiful glass plaque that glimmered in the light. As they gathered around her, she was cocooned in appreciation, her heart radiating warmth. Jack felt a swell of admiration for her, a celebration of everything she stood for, reinforced in that moment. She had uplifted him, just as she had done for so many others. The applause continued, and as Jack looked around, he realized he wasn't just an observer anymore. No, he was a part of this community, and in that realization, something shifted deep within him. The applause melded with the rhythm of the music, flowing through him as he stood amongst the jubilant staff. Jack exclaimed, joining in the applause as everyone chanted her name. Tears glimmered in Elle's eyes, but they sparkled with the brilliance of pride and joy. Suddenly, she caught Jack's eye, and a grin stretched across her face. In that moment, they understood each other deeply, a bond deepening through shared experiences. As the event wound down, they found themselves sitting together, the weight of the award still resonating in the air. "You deserve this, Elle," Jack said genuinely. "Thank you, Jack," she replied softly, a genuine smile lighting her features. Their paths had intersected, sparking something powerful that night, a connection that neither had expected. It felt as if they had both stepped into the light, shedding old insecurities along the way. As the night drew to a close and people began to disperse, Jack felt something remarkable bubbling within him. He asked, heart thumping with anticipation. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Let's keep the momentum going." With their plans cemented, Jack stepped back onto the lobby floor, heart racing at the thought of the journey ahead. He had come for a conference, but what he'd received was an experience that transcended anything he could have imagined. He glanced back at Elle, standing amid her team, enveloped in love and appreciation. She radiated vitality as the night lights glimmered around her, a vision he would carry with him long after they parted. That night, when Jack returned to his room, the city skyline sprawled before him like a sea of shimmering stars. He realized that holding the elevator door wasn't just about kindness. It had opened him up to connections that previously felt impossible. The idea that he could belong didn't just feel like a dream. It became a reality, one strengthened through Ella's warmth, connection, and inspiration. And with that thought, he let the gentle hum of the city lull him into a peaceful sleep. Because tomorrow awaited him, filled with possibilities, friendships, and a new chapter, where ordinary moments could unveil extraordinary connections. He held the elevator door open, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. The soft hum of the hotel lobby faded into oblivion as he watched a woman sprint towards him, her heels clacking against the polished marble floor. The urgency in her stride struck him, drawing his attention like a moth to a flame. She gasped, her voice tinged with panic. Without thinking, Tom pressed the button to keep the door from closing, an instinctive reaction. He could feel a rush of adrenaline, a fleeting sense of heroism as she stepped inside just before the doors fully closed. She breathed, catching her breath. "Not a problem," Tom replied, his heart racing for entirely different reasons. He was suddenly aware of the small space they occupied, the air thick with a strange mix of her floral perfume and the faint scent of polished wood. As the elevator ascended, he took a moment to really look at her. She wore a striking blue dress that hugged her form in a way that made her seem as if she had just stepped out of a magazine. But what captivated him more was the flurry of emotion in her eyes, a mix of gratitude and just a touch of anxiety. He asked, trying to break the tension. "Penthouse," she replied, a slight smile breaking through the waves of anxiety. "I'm attending a gala." "Just a regular guest headed to a conference," Tom replied, attempting to sound casual even though he felt anything but. She said, her enthusiasm catching him off guard. At that moment, the elevator chimed, and as it reopened on the penthouse floor, he felt a jolt of reality hit him. She was about to step into a world he could only dream of, a lavish gala, filled with glitz and glamour, while he was just a lonely traveler trying to find his way. The doors slid open, and Tom was about to say something, to extend this moment just a bit longer, when he was struck speechless. A line of hotel staff stood waiting, their faces beaming with joy as if welcoming royalty. "Welcome," as one exclaimed, stepping forward with genuine enthusiasm. Tom blinked in disbelief. The woman he had just met was greeted like she was a celebrity. He felt himself begin to shrink, the confidence he had mustered just moments before dissipating. She said, a radiant smile lighting up her face. It was as if she fit perfectly into this world that he felt wholly unprepared for. Jack stood frozen, feeling the chill of his own insecurities creeping back. Here he was, just a guy who had helped keep the elevator doors open, while she seemed to command an entire room full of people. Would he ever be someone important in his own life? She called out, turning back to him, her eyes sparkling. He hesitated, clenching his fists at his sides. "Oh, I wouldn't want to intrude," he stammered, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt. "Don't be silly, you helped me." She beamed, exuding an energy that was both inviting and invigorating. And in that fleeting instant, Tom realized that maybe he could step outside of his comfort zone just this once. Maybe he could be bold, hold on to an opportunity that had landed right in front of him. With a deep breath, he stepped into the hallway, following her as the hotel staff surrounded her, their animated discussions swirling like a whirlwind. They exchanged playful banter and genuine laughter, and Tom found himself swept along in the current. As Ellie finally learned her name turned toward him, a new sense of belonging washed over him, momentarily dissolving the shadows of self-doubt. She asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "No, I haven't actually," Tom admitted shyly, feeling the weight of his words. She laughed, nudging him playfully. For a moment the world faded away. She turned to the staff, engaging with each of them, her laughter ringing like music in his ears. Each staff member seemed genuinely happy to see her, drawing out a warmth that captivated Tom. He looked around at the decor, the grand chandeliers glittering like diamonds, the rich colors enveloping the room, and all the exquisite details that seemed to scream luxury. It should have felt intimidating, but with Elle by his side, it began to feel exhilarating instead. She said, leading him toward the main ballroom, her excitement palpable. As they entered, bright lights cast a golden glow across the room, reflecting the joyful energy of the crowd gathered beneath the lavish decor. Tom could feel the electric hum of the gala resonate around him, infusing him with energy. Laughter and conversations mixed together, weaving a vibrant tapestry of camaraderie and celebration. For the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. Maybe this night could be something special. Elle said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Sure, that sounds great," Tom replied, feeling both anxious and exhilarated. As they made their way to the bar, stories and laughter floated around them. The staff treated Elle like a beloved friend, bantering with her over drinks and sharing inside jokes. Jack observed closely, envious yet inspired. How did she do it? What made her stand out so effortlessly? "Here we go," she said, returning with drinks in hand. Tom took the offered glass and felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you, this is incredible," he said, glancing around. Elle waved her hand dismissively. Life's full of surprises. He watched her camaraderie with the staff, and the way they laughed together made it clear that her light drew people in. Perhaps it wasn't just her charm, it was the way she genuinely connected with those around her. The realization struck a chord in him. "Is this what you do?" he asked, half joking. She replied, crossing her arms as a mischievous smile danced across her lips. "Life's too short to spend it alone and isolated." Her words rang true, pulling at the pieces of his heart that had grown weary from isolation. Maybe he'd been too cautious, too afraid to reach out. As the night progressed, they moved deeper into the gathering, mingling among guests and staff. Tom found himself sharing stories, laughing and letting go of the weight he had carried for so long. "Tell me more about what you do," Elle said, her attention focused entirely on him. "I work in it," he replied, relaxing in the warmth of her interest. She pressed, genuinely intrigued. "I want to connect with people, help them thrive, bring people together," he confessed. She nodded, understanding painted across her face. "Sometimes taking that first step is all you need." "Exactly," he chuckled, recalling how their journey had begun. "It's not just the action, it's the intention behind it," she remarked wisely. "You cared enough to hold the door open, and it led to this incredible night." Tom felt a tug at his heart. Her words felt like a key turning in a lock, awakening a fire within him. Perhaps he could be that person, he realized. As they danced, lost in each other's presence, the noise of the room faded into an energetic hum. They twirled around the floor, laughter bubbling between them as they embraced the spontaneity of the evening. But just as Tom started feeling free, a sudden shift in the atmosphere interrupted their moment. The crowd hushed, and all heads turned toward a stage at the far end of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the microphone, a hotel manager beaming with pride. Tom and Elle exchanged glances, curiosity sparkling in their eyes. The manager went on to highlight the amount of hard work everyone had put into making that night a success. But then something changed. "We want to take a moment to recognize someone who has truly made a difference here," the manager said, their voice resonating through the air. Tom's heart raced. Who could it be? As the applause began, he glanced around the room, realizing the staff were already shifting and whispering among themselves. And then the words pierced through the air, freezing him in disbelief. "Tonight, we recognize Ms." The applause erupted, and Tom felt the air thicken as everyone turned towards her. Shock transformed her features, framed by joy and surprise. She mouthed, eyes wide, as she took a step back. The staff surged toward her, wrapping her in affection and admiration, almost like a beautiful dance. Jack stepped back, his heart pounding in rhythm with the claps and cheers. Stunned, he began to see it unfold, the love that surrounded her, the connections she had fostered knitted into this moment. Time slowed as Tom watched her accept the award, tears glimmering in her eyes. She beamed, absorbing every ounce of appreciation like sunlight breaking through clouds. She finally exclaimed, her voice breaking. In that moment, she became both vulnerable and radiant, a testament to her ability to connect. Tom felt a blend of pride and admiration swell within him. She had inspired not just him, but everyone around her, igniting sparks of joy. As the accolades continued to pour in, the weight of the night settled in. He realized that her success illuminated the importance of connection, and how sometimes the smallest act could lead to something monumental. After the applause faded, guests began to settle back in, and Tom turned to Elle, who was breathless with disbelief. "Wow," she whispered, tears still on her cheeks. "That was incredible," he replied, his heart racing. "Thank you for being here with me," she said, reaching for his hand and squeezing it lightly. A wave of warmth washed over him, grounding him in this moment. "No, thank you for reminding me that life is about connection," he said. As the night deepened and the celebrations continued, Tom found himself shifted change because of a moment. A door held open, a chance taken, and a connection forged. Elaine squeezed his hand again, and he could feel a bond forming, one that would transcend this night. "You know," she said, her voice soft and inviting, "let's plan to keep this going." "The night doesn't have to end here," Tom nodded, filled with excitement. They spent the rest of the evening lost in laughter, new friendships blossoming around them, the hotel filled with the gleam of hope, connection, and promise. In that grand ballroom, amidst the laughter and the glow of the night, he realized that he had stepped into a new chapter, one defined not by isolation, but by the richness of connection and joy. With every word, every smile exchanged, they were writing their own stories. And as he held the door open, letting life step in, he understood the true meaning of belonging, how one small act could lead to an eternity filled with exciting connections, undeniable passion, and fresh starts. Every choice mattered, and Tom had chosen to embrace it all. He held the elevator door open, his heart racing as he glanced back just in time to see her sprinting towards him. The soft hum of the hotel lobby faded into the background as he focused solely on the woman in a striking red dress, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. She called, breathless and urgent. Without thinking, Jake pressed the button to keep the door from closing. He could feel an adrenaline rush course through him, a spark of heroism ignited by that fleeting moment. She gasped, stepping inside as the doors slid shut behind her. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of relief and gratitude, and with every passing second, the atmosphere in the small elevator shifted. Jake asked, reveling in the brief silence they shared. She exclaimed, her smile lighting up the cramped space. Jake offered a smile back, admiring her confidence. "I hope I'm not crashing a VIP party," he teased, feeling the warmth of their moment. "Not at all, everyone is welcome at this gala," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. With each passing second, Jake felt a strange electricity crackling between them. As the elevator doors opened, revealing the magnificent penthouse lobby, Jake's heart skipped a beat. But just as he was about to step out alongside her, the scene before him changed dramatically. Standing in a perfectly lined row was a group of hotel staff, their faces beaming with genuine admiration. "Welcome back, Ms. One called, and Jake blinked in disbelief. She was greeted like royalty. She said, laughter dancing in her voice as she stepped out into the cluster of staff. Jake felt like he had suddenly shrunk into the background, the warmth he had just experienced vanishing into the air. Caught in the whirlwind of admiration directed at her, he struggled with the nagging sensation that he didn't belong. This was a world of elegance, of people who exuded confidence and charm far beyond his reach. But as he stood there uncertain whether he should leave or linger, another staff member turned toward him. Elle asked, her curiosity piqued. Absolutely. The acknowledgement pulled Jake from his wallflower state, igniting a sense of connection he hadn't expected. He said, unsure whether he was smiling at the staff or at Elle. One staff member inquired, gesturing towards Elle. "This is Elle Harris," Jake said, a slight bravado creeping into his voice. The staff member quipped and everyone laughed, easing Jake's worries a little. Elle requested, flashing him a grateful smile. They replied, dispersing with waves and friendly nods. Jake stood uncertainly for a moment as Elle turned her attention back to him, her eyes dancing with warmth. "I really appreciate you holding the door. It's nice to see a friendly face in all this." "I'm just glad I was here," he replied, intrigued and drawn to her energy. As they stood there, the bustling world of the gala seemed to swirl around them, and Jake felt a spark of hope ignite within. Maybe he didn't have to be just an observer on the sidelines. He could become part of this world. She asked, her genuine interest captivating him. "Just attending the conference. Been looking forward to it for weeks," Jake admitted, the apprehension that once hung over him slowly lifting. She exclaimed, feigning a dramatic bow, "I applaud you for that. Let's make sure tonight isn't just about business." With an infectious grin, she pulled him closer to the main hall, where the laughter and music punctuated the air. As they entered the ballroom, Jake felt the weight of his insecurities dissipate, replaced by the thrill of possibility. Elle said, leading him through the crowd, their steps synchronized as they weaved among the elegantly dressed guests. Jake watched her engage with everyone around her, the way she laughed, her gestures, and the spark of enthusiasm in her eyes. She treated everyone, staff and guests, alike with equal warmth and respect, captivating them with her charm. It was mesmerizing. He asked, the admiration slipping into his voice. I try to, she replied, a hint of humility flashing across her face, quickly replaced by a teasing grin. Life's too short to be boring. Their drinks arrived, two vibrant cocktails echoing the riot of colors around them. She declared, raising her glass high. Jake echoed, feeling an exhilarating rush of camaraderie as they clinked glasses, the sound ringing with a promise of adventure. As they began to share stories over their drinks, Jake felt himself opening up in ways he never had before. He spoke of his passion for photography and the beauty he found in capturing moments, yet he could hardly believe that he was revealing so much to someone he had just met. Elle nodded, genuinely interested. Every photograph tells a story, just as every person does. He felt understood, and as Jake listened to her speak, he realized that her journey of connection was something he longed for. Elle shared her experiences in nonprofit work, her voice rich with passion as she described some of the lives she had touched. Jake asked, fascinated by her resolve, I realize that we all have a responsibility to make a difference, but it takes courage to step out of our comfort zones. Kindness and connection can change lives, she explained, her eyes gleaming with conviction. Wow, that's inspiring, he replied, truly captivated. As the night wore on, Jake felt lighter, more alive than he had in ages. Elle's bubbly spirit and kindness lifted his own, and soon he forgot about the walls he had built around himself. The conversations flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the joyful sounds of the gala. But then out of nowhere, a commotion began near the edge of the ballroom. The atmosphere seemed to shift, a hushed excitement spread through the crowd. Jake asked, curiosity piqued. Elle said, leading him toward the source of the commotion. As they drew closer, they saw the hotel manager stepping onto the stage with a microphone in hand. He cleared his throat and a confident presence filled the room. Jake held Elle's hand tighter, anticipation buzzing between them. A wave of curiosity rippled through the crowd, and suddenly it hit Jake. The anticipation mounted, and he felt a sudden, gripping anxiety. Tonight, we honor a true leader, someone who not only inspires others, but also ignites change within our world. Please join me in congratulating. The room erupted into applause, and Jake's eyes widened with disbelief. What? Elle whispered, her cheeks turning a deep shade of red as she stood frozen. The more the applause grew, the deeper the disbelief settled in her expression. Shouted the manager, inviting her to the stage. Elle glanced back at Jake, her eyes filled with a mix of surprise and joy. He urged, feeling a swell of pride. As she stepped onto the stage, the applause washed over her like a warm embrace. Jake watched, his heart racing. She had truly made an impact, and it was beautiful to witness. Elle's voice echoed over the microphone as she blinked back tears. I'm truly grateful for this recognition, but it's not only about me. As she spoke, Jake felt something shift within him. Her words resonated deeply, reminding him of the journey they had both embarked on that night, culminating in this moment. He stood, applause ringing in his ears as the crowd celebrated her. The joy on her face was contagious, and he couldn't help but join in the applause, cheering for the woman who had unknowingly transformed not just her surroundings, but his journey too. After the cheers subsided and Elle stepped down from the stage, she rushed into Jake's arms, beaming with undeniable joy. She exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. Jake replied, his heart swelling with admiration. Tears glimmered in her eyes as she thanked him, her voice a whisper. I couldn't have done it without the connections. As the night wore on, they spent the evening wrapped in conversations, sharing dreams, laughter, and ambitions. Jake realized that Elle had not only uplifted him, but unlocked a part of his spirit that had long been dormant. Elle suggested, her eyes shining, we shouldn't let this be a one-time encounter. Absolutely, Jake agreed, feeling the warmth of their connection solidify into something beautiful and lasting. Before he knew it, they were planning out their next meetups, their dreams intertwining and their laughter echoing through the marble hallways. As the night deepened, Jake looked around at the vibrant crowd, realizing he had gone from being just another face in the vast hotel to someone who had stepped into the light of possibility. It's funny how a moment can change everything, he remarked, turning to Elle. She nodded, her gaze warm and steady. Jake took a breath, grateful for the direction his life was taking. That night, he understood the weight of small moments and how something as simple as holding an elevator door could lead to an extraordinary journey, one that united two souls and sparked a friendship forged in authenticity. As the gala drew to a close and guests began to disperse, Jake felt a sense of fulfillment settling in. Moments spent in vulnerability had transformed into laughter and camaraderie, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. In remembering the woman in the red dress and the doors that had opened for him, he also understood that he held the power to open doors for others. And with that realization, he stepped boldly into the night, where the possibilities were as bright as the stars illuminating the skyline, ready for whatever awaited him next. He held the elevator door, a simple gesture that would shift the course of his evening in ways he never expected. Mark stood in the grand lobby of the Carlisle Hotel, thick with the sounds of laughter and chatter. The air was filled with the sweet scent of fresh flowers, the kind of luxury that made even a guy like him feel a bit out of place, but today he stood tall. As the elevator doors began to slide shut, he caught sight of her, a woman in a stunning emerald dress, rushing forward with a look of pure urgency. She called, her voice slicing through the bustling noise. Mark instinctively pressed the button to keep the doors open. A wave of relief washed over him as she stepped inside, her warm smile illuminating the small space. "Thank you so much, I thought I'd miss it," she said, catching her breath. "No problem at all," he replied, his heart racing for reasons he couldn't quite explain. There was something captivating about her, something that drew him in and made the world outside fade into the background. He asked, trying to break the tension that hung between them like a thread waiting to snap. "Penthouse," she said, a hint of excitement lacing her voice. With a slight chuckle, he replied, "I've never been to a penthouse gala." "It is, but my feet are killing me after a long day," she said, glancing down at her elegant footwear. The elevator chimed softly as it began to ascend, and he felt the intimacy of the moment close in around them. Before he could say anything else, the elevator doors swooshed open, and the atmosphere changed dramatically. A throng of hotel staff stood waiting, forming a neat line, their faces glowing with excitement as if they were welcoming a rock star. "Welcome back, Ms." One staff member called out, and Mark felt his heart sink. The energy that had sparked between them moments ago fizzled out, replaced by a wave of self-doubt. This woman was held in high regard, and he was just a stranger, a guy who held the door. She exclaimed, stepping out of the elevator, the joy in her voice palpable. Mark felt the momentum of his confidence crashing down like a wave retreating from the shore. "Do you need anything else, Ms.?" a waiter asked, his voice smooth as silk. "No, I'm great, thank you." She turned back to Mark, her eyes sparkling with warmth. I was just," he hesitated, caught off guard by her genuine interest. Did she really want him there? "Come on, you can't leave now." "You've already helped me out," she urged, her smile wide enough to warm the coldest of hearts. The hotel staff stepped back, allowing him to follow her into the lavishly decorated penthouse suite. Mark felt as if he were stepping into another world. The room was adorned with glistening chandeliers, a view of shimmering city lights, and an aura of elegance he had only ever glimpsed from afar. She declared, sweeping her arm wide as if to invite him into a dream. "Wow," he breathed, taking in the splendor around him. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The glint of gold and the sweet scent of rich desserts made him realize how far removed he felt from this lifestyle. She asked, tilting her head slightly as she glanced his way. "Sure," he said, trying to sound casual. "Something fruity but fun," she replied, darting towards the bar. As she seized a drink from the bar, Mark couldn't help but watch her enthusiasm. She was magnetic, and it made him feel like he had stepped into a fairy tale. They found a quieter corner of the room, and she raised her glass in a toast. He echoed, their glasses clinking together. As the evening unfolded like a blooming flower, Mark felt his nerves begin to dissolve. He shared bits about his life, a humble job and a passion for literature, while she revealed her world of philanthropy and the beautiful causes she supported. She said, leaning in closer, her eyes sparkled with sincerity. "Absolutely," he replied, realizing how right she was. Here he was, revealing his aspirations to a woman who seemed to have it all together, yet somehow made him feel like they were on equal ground. "There's something powerful in vulnerability," she continued, her voice softening. "It's how we relate to one another and build bridges." A wave of realization washed over him. Sitting here with her, he felt a bond forming, something authentic. But as they laughed and shared stories, Mark's attention drifted to a large gathering forming near the stage. The hotel manager stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight," he said, the room quieting as all eyes turned toward him. Mark's heart raced. Who could it be? He glanced at Elle, whose face turned to the stage, her expression curious. The suspense hung thick in the air. He could feel the excitement swirling around him. "Ms." The applause erupted, and Elle's eyes widened in shock. She whispered, looking around as if searching for the source of the noise. The staff cheered, their faces bright with admiration as they rallied around her. "Go on," Mark urged, feeling a swell of pride. With a rush of disbelief, she stepped forward, her hand pressed to her heart. "Whoa, guys," the room roared with appreciation as she took her place on stage, radiant and vulnerable. "We want to honor you for not just your hard work, but for the way you connect with everyone around you. You inspire people to be their best selves," the manager said, gesturing at the eager crowd. Mark watched spellbound as Elle slid into the spotlight, overwhelmed but also empowered. As the applause reached a crescendo, she caught Mark's eye in the crowd. In that moment, there was no sense of distance. He felt tied to her triumph, a sense of pride swelling within him. After accepting the award, she turned to the audience and addressed them with passion. "Thank you so much. I'm truly grateful for this recognition, but it's not just me, this is a collective effort." The crowd erupted into cheers, and in that instant, Mark realized how far-reaching her influence truly was. She had this innate ability to lift others, her spirit igniting hope and camaraderie. As she rejoined him after the festivities, her smile radiated joy. She exclaimed, her eyes wide with delight. Tom chuckled, his heart swelling. "You earned it." Their shared laughter felt different now, deeper, more meaningful. They ventured back to the bar, grabbing another round of drinks. Elle said, raising her glass again. Mark echoed, their glasses clinking like the sound of new beginnings, but just as they settled back into their comfortable bubble, Mark noticed a flicker of hesitation in her expression. He asked, genuine concern knitting his brow. She paused, searching for her words. Her vulnerability struck him hard. The truth was, he had been grappling with the same feelings. "Everyone expects you to be a certain way when you're at the top," she continued, her voice softening. "The reality is," Mark nodded, understanding now that this experience went deeper than just celebration. It was about navigating the complexity of success and the burden that often accompanied it. "You don't have to carry it alone," he offered gently, feeling the connection between them strengthen. She smiled, and for a moment everything felt right in the world. "Thank you for saying that." But just as their moment deepened, a sudden ruckus erupted from the far end of the ballroom. A pair of voices raised in anger pierced through the laughter and excitement, tension crackling like electricity in the air. Mark turned, his heart racing. A man was standing near the entrance, gesturing wildly, his face red with frustration. The noise of laughter fell away, replaced by the weight of something unsaid. The man shouted, drawing the attention of staff and guests alike. "Sir, please calm down," the hotel manager urged, stepping forward with authority, but the man would not have it. "You think you can just treat people like this?" Unease rippled through the crowd as whispered conversations sparked like fireworks. Mark and Elle exchanged bewildered glances, the joyous atmosphere now punctured by distress. Mark asked, heart racing. "Yes," Ellie said, a frown settling on her brow, and together they pushed through the throng of guests, moving closer to the commotion. What would happen next? What did this angry voice mean for the celebration they had just built? The air grew thick with anticipation, and as they reached the front, they braced themselves for whatever story was about to unfold. Mark had no idea that a moment of celebration could turn into a showdown, and creeping dread unfurled inside him. Would this night end in chaos, or could the connections they'd nurtured prevail against the turmoil? With every flickering heartbeat, the tension mounted, and he sensed the weight of the air above them, waiting for resolution. As the confrontation escalated, one thought echoed loud and clear: all it takes is a moment to change everything. What lay ahead was uncertain, but they were about to find out just how deep a single connection could reach.